Welcome back, everyone. You know how much we love to really get into the heart of things here. So today we're diving deep into a sermon that's got a lot of people talking. Come and see.
It's a good one. Minister Dargan always has a way of, bringing those insightful messages.
He really does. All about spreading the word.
Right.
And get this.
Okay.
The preacher, Minister Darin, even mentions a previous sermon getting interrupted.
Oh.
Which sparked a whole spin-off video podcast.
Wow.
Talk about keeping things lively.
Keeping people engaged.
Right.
Yeah. What's fascinating is how preachers are using these techniques to capture and maintain attention.
Right.
Sermon series create a sense of anticipation and continuity like chapters in a great book.
It's true.
And by weaving in those personal anecdotes, Minister Darin makes himself relatable, building real connection with his audience.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, hey, I'm just like you. I deal with the unexpected too.
Right.
But then he dives right into this story of the woman at the well, John 4, for those following along at home. Mm-hmm. And he lays out his whole sermon structure. 5 points and D4 steps.
Wow.
It's practically a self-help guide on how to share your faith, all wrapped up in one sermon.
I think that structure is very deliberate.
Okay.
It reflects a common approach in sermons, providing both theological understanding and practical application.
Right.
Minister Darin isn't just telling his congregation what to think, but how to act on those beliefs.
Right. So let's unpack these points.
Okay.
The first one is about this unexpected encounter at the well.
Okay.
We've got Jesus in Samaria, a place Jews typically avoided. And he meets this woman who, Minister Darin points out, came at noon to avoid people.
Interesting.
Not exactly
prime time.
Not exactly prime social hour, right?
Right.
What do you think Minister Darin is highlighting here?
Well, there's a lot going on here.
Right.
First, Jesus intentionally crosses societal boundaries by engaging with a Samaritan.
Right.
This act alone challenges prejudices and underscores that his message is for everyone.
Right.
And the woman's choice of timing suggests a desire to avoid judgment.
Okay.
Perhaps due to her past.
Yeah.
This makes her a compelling figure, someone seeking something more in the shadows.
It's interesting that Minister Darin uses the word shame.
Okay.
He doesn't shy away from the fact that this woman had well past 5 husbands.
Right.
And currently with someone who's not her husband.
Right.
That's
a lot.
That's a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
And yet Jesus chooses to reveal himself to her.
Exactly. This goes back to a central theme in Christianity, God's grace being available to everyone, regardless of their past.
Okay.
The woman's story becomes even more powerful because of her perceived flaws.
Right.
It reinforces the idea that God doesn't wait for us to be perfect before he chooses to work through us.
It's almost like her vulnerability makes her a more effective messenger later on, wouldn't you say?
Precisely. Think about it.
Okay.
Who do you find more relatable? Someone who appears to have it all together or someone who openly wrestles with life's complexities?
Definitely the latter.
Right.
Okay. Point 2 from Minister Darin is all about the woman's simple testimony. He emphasizes that she doesn't even fully understand who Jesus is yet, but she runs off telling everyone, come and see.
Right.
Is that kind of the heart of what Minister Darin is trying to get across?
Yeah.
About sharing faith?
Absolutely. Minister Darin is dismantling the idea that you need to be a biblical scholar to evangelize.
Okay.
The woman's testimony wasn't eloquent or theologically complex.
Right.
But it was genuine and rooted in her personal experience.
Okay.
And that's what resonated with the people that she encountered.
He even says sometimes just waking up and being able to buy food is a testimony in itself.
Right.
That makes evangelism feel a lot less intimidating.
Yeah.
And a lot more accessible.
Yeah. It's about shifting the perspective.
Okay.
We often equate testimony with dramatic life transformations. But Minister Darin reminds us that even the seemingly ordinary can be a testament to God's grace.
Okay.
It's about recognizing those blessings big and small.
Right.
And letting them shape how we view and interact with the world.
So it's less about having all the right answers.
Yeah.
And more about simply pointing people towards the source of those blessings.
Precisely. It's about saying, look, I may not have it all figured out, but I've encountered something extraordinary, and I believe you should too.
Right.
That's the essence of the come and see message.
It's interesting, this emphasis on personal experience.
Yeah.
Is that a common thread in how modern sermons approach evangelism?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a recognition that in our increasingly secular and skeptical world, people are less persuaded by dogma
Okay.
and more by lived experiences. People connect with authenticity, with stories they can relate to on a human level.
So sharing our faith becomes less about reciting scripture
Yes.
and more about sharing how those scriptures have impacted our lives.
Exactly. It's about bridging the gap between ancient text and modern experience.
Okay, that leads us perfectly into Minister Darin's next point. Jesus is the living water.
Okay.
He uses this metaphor to talk about how people are searching for meaning in all the wrong places. It's a classic sermon move, right?
It is.
Connecting ancient text to modern issues.
Absolutely. One of the core functions of a sermon is to make scripture relevant to contemporary life.
Right.
Minister Darin is drawing a parallel between the woman's physical thirst for water and the spiritual thirst he sees in today's world.
It's like he's saying we all crave something deeper, you know?
Right.
But we often look for it in all the wrong places. Success,
Right.
relationships, even that new gadget we just have to have.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is he onto something here?
Absolutely. He's tapping into that universal human longing for fulfillment, that something more that goes beyond fleeting pleasures or material possessions. Minister Darin is highlighting that while these things might offer temporary satisfaction, they can never truly quench our deepest thirst.
It's like chasing after a mirage,
Yeah.
right? You think you're getting closer,
Right.
but it's always just out of reach.
Exactly. Minister Darin seems to be saying that true fulfillment comes from a different source altogether, a source that can quench that inner thirst in a way that nothing else can. It's about recognizing that yearning for what it is, a yearning for connection, for purpose, for something that transcends the everyday.
And it's funny because it feels so obvious when you hear him say it.
Right.
But it's so easy to get caught up in those distractions and forget what we're truly searching for.
That's the thing about these ancient metaphors. They have a way of cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of the human experience. Minister Darin is simply reminding us of a truth that's often hidden in plain sight.
Okay, so we're thirsty. We need that living water. How do we get it?
Well, that's where Minister Darin's next point comes in. He talks about overcoming barriers in evangelism, and he uses the story of Jesus and the woman to illustrate this. Remember, Jews didn't associate with Samaritans? Men didn't speak to women in public. Jesus shattered those norms.
Yeah, it's like Minister Darin is saying, look, if Jesus was willing to break down barriers to share his message, shouldn't we be willing to do the same? It's a pretty powerful challenge.
It is. And it's especially relevant in our world today, where we're often faced with so many divisions. Minister Darin reminds us that evangelism isn't about judging or excluding. It's about extending a hand even to those we might perceive as different.
He even talks about how we might worry about offending people or not knowing enough to share our faith. But it seems like he's saying that the simple act of extending an invitation, of saying, come and see, is more powerful than we realized.
Absolutely. And think about the woman at the well. Oh, she didn't have all the answers. She didn't fully understand who Jesus was. But her genuine invitation, her come and see, had a profound impact.
Right. And that brings us to Minister Darin's final point, the ripple effect of evangelism. He talks about how the woman's simple testimony, her come and see, caused an entire village to believe in Jesus. It's like tossing a pebble into a pond and watching the ripples spread out, impacting everything they touch.
Exactly. Minister Darin highlights that our actions, however small they may seem, have the potential to create a ripple effect that extends far beyond ourselves. The woman's story reminds us that we don't need to be theologians or preachers to make a difference.
And that's where the series title, Who's Gonna Tell Them, really hits home. Right. It's not just about our individual journeys, but about the collective responsibility we have to share this message of hope and transformation.
Precisely. Minister Darin is inviting us to consider the potential impact of our own come and see moments. Who in our lives might be searching for that living water? How can our experiences, our stories, point them towards something more?
Okay, so Minister Darin has laid out these powerful points, connecting this ancient story to our modern lives. But he doesn't stop there, does he? He takes it a step further, giving us actual practical steps to put these ideas into action.
That's what makes this sermon so compelling.
Right.
He's not just inspiring us, he's equipping us with the tools to actually live out what he's preaching.
And I love that he doesn't sugarcoat it. He starts with live an organic life of faith. Essentially, he's saying walk the walk, folks. Don't just talk the talk.
It's about embodying your faith authentically in every aspect of your life. Minister Darin seems to be saying that people are more likely to be drawn to faith when they see it lived out genuinely rather than simply preached at them.
It's that old saying, actions speak louder than words, right?
Exactly. It's about letting your life be a testament to your beliefs, demonstrating the transformative power of faith through your actions, your choices, and your interactions with others.
Okay, so we're living authentically, letting our actions speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What's next on Minister Darin's list of practical advice?
Well, step 2 is where he really gets into the nitty-gritty of sharing your faith. He calls it share your story. And he emphasizes that it doesn't need to be some dramatic conversion experience.
Yeah.
He even says that sometimes simply being grateful for a meal can be a powerful testimony.
It's like he knows,
Yeah.
right? Like he knows that there are people out there who are thinking, oh, my story's not that interesting.
Right, like who am I to share?
Exactly.
Okay.
But he's like, no, even just being grateful for that meal, that's a testimony in itself.
Absolutely. And by sharing those everyday experiences through the lens of faith, we invite others to see that grace as well.
I love it. Okay, so we're living our faith authentically. We're sharing our stories. What's next on Minister Darin's list for putting this come and see idea into practice?
Well, step 3 is all about taking that next step. He calls it extend invitations, and it's about actively creating opportunities for others to experience Jesus for themselves.
So it's not enough to just live our faith quietly. We have to be willing to share it with others to invite them in.
Exactly. It's about inviting people into that space where they can encounter something more, whether it's through a conversation, a church service, or even just a shared meal.
Like just creating that space of possibility.
Exactly.
And being that open door.
It's about extending that hand of friendship and saying, hey, I've found something that brings me joy and peace, and I think you might find it meaningful too.
I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got live an organic life of faith, share your story, extend invitations. What's the final step?
The final step is to trust God to do the rest.
Oh, I love that.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not in control.
And that's actually incredibly freeing, right?
Absolutely. Minister Darin reminds us that we can plant seeds, but it's ultimately God who brings the growth. Our job is simply to share our experiences, extend invitations, and trust that God will work through us in ways we may never fully comprehend.
Yeah, just let go and let God.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us? What's the takeaway from this deep dive into Minister Darin's sermon?
Well, I think Minister Darin leaves us with a really powerful and timely message about the simplicity and the importance of sharing our faith. He reminds us that it doesn't require theological expertise or a dramatic conversion story, just a willingness to live authentically, share our experiences, and invite others to come and see the transformative power of faith for themselves.
It's like he's giving us permission to not be perfect, to still be on that journey, and still invite others to walk alongside us.
Absolutely. And that's a message I think we can all take to heart.
It really is. And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought from Minister Darin's sermon. Who in your life might be thirsty for that living water? Who needs to hear your come and see?
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast based on the Sunday, September 29th sermon, which is the 4th installment in the series, Who's Gonna Tell Him? It's entitled Come and See, based on John, the 4th chapter, preached by Minister Darin D'Von Dargan. And if you've enjoyed it, then share it. Also, be on the lookout for new episodes every Tuesday. You can subscribe to our channel to receive alerts so that you don't miss a new episode when it drops. We invite you to join in a live discussion about Sunday sermon every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on our conference line. Telephone number 605-313-4831. Access code 869360. Come join us for live worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. Congregational Church of God, located at 1889 Amsterdam Avenue between West 153rd and 154th Streets in New York, New York. But if you can't come out, you can join our live stream. On YouTube, our channel is CCOG NYC, and on our Facebook page at Congregational Church of God NYC. Until then, I look forward to seeing you live or on our live stream. God bless you.